Hello, I'm Chitra and I'm here to interpret Shakespeare's Sonnet 1. From fairest creatures we desire increase, that thereby beauty's rose might never die. But as the riper should by time decrease, his tender air might bear his memory. But thou, contracted to thine own bright eyes, feedest thy light's flame with self-substantial fuel, making a famine where abundance lies. Thyself, thy foe, to thy sweet self too cruel. Thou that art now the world's fresh ornament and only herald to the gaudy spring, within thine own bud buryest thy content, and tender churl makest waste in niggarding. Pity the world, or else this glutton be, to eat the world's due by the grave and feed. This is the first of Shakespeare's sonnets to the fair youth. Let us seek some clarity here. He says, from fairest creatures we desire increase. Or what is the normal human tendency when we see something beautiful around us? We love to see it, and because it has made such an impression on us, we wish to perpetuate it in our memories. Why do we do this? Because there is this love in all of us to immortalize beauty. And how do we keep alive the memory of that beauty's rose? The image of the rose that is brought in here is to emphasize that much like the beautiful rose which we hope never dies but continues to enthrall us, we would love to see anything of beauty being kept alive for all posterity. The question that comes next to our mind is, how are fairest creatures kept alive? We keep beauty's rose alive only by propagation. A bud becomes a rose and in turn continues to make our lives beautiful. Similarly, human beings who are handsome should present to the world the next generation by passing on the good genes, and so continue to immortalize their beauty. We must remember the passing of time on earth. Everybody grows older, and with the passage of time, the young man becomes old and dies. But then, Shakespeare says, we might die. That is, the handsome fair youth might die, but he can father a child and pass on his genes through his heir. The baby will bear his name and keep alive the memory of his charm and beauty. Shakespeare speaks in contempt to the young man and says, but thou, contracted to thine own eyes, feedest thy light's flame with self-substantial fuel. He's quite upset with a young man who will not father a child for posterity. He's resentful that this young man is depriving the world of his loveliness. With barely disguised contempt, Shakespeare says, by not bringing to earth his baby, the youth is just a wastrel, a man contracted, bound to his own beauty. He's so immersed in the beauty of his own bright eyes and is so enthralled by his own handsomeness that he feeds his light's flame, his life, with self-substantial fuel of obsession with his own beauty. The young man is self-centered and cannot go beyond it to make his life meaningful. It is as if the light of his life is fueled by his own narcissism, his admiration of his own handsomeness. He wants to keep all this beauty to himself, to hold it for himself. And that obsession is what is keeping his life going. So he now says, the young fair youth is making a famine where abundance lies, thyself thy foe, to thy sweet self too cruel. You know, when is one one's own enemy or cruel to oneself? Here, the fair youth denies the fact that there is something of great esteem within himself. He's cruel to himself by refusing to believe that his beauty is worthy of being perpetuated. This is the young man's problem, and thereby he's creating a famine where there is plenitude. Shakespeare describes the beauty of the fair youth in the next few lines again, and he says that the fair youth is the world's fresh ornament. He is a beautiful piece of jewelry that adorns the world. He is the only person fit to tell the world about the onset of the spring in all its gaudy colors, because there's so much of joy and so much of beauty in himself. Shakespeare gives a wake-up call to the fair youth. He says, your beauty, all of it is getting wasted, and like a miser hoarding his wealth, you, young man, you are wasting your beauty by stockpiling all of it in secret. You are a tender churl, Shakespeare calls this young man. You waste your life in niggarding. Now we get the antithetical image when he calls the fair youth as tender churl. A churlish person is someone who is short of temper, possesses an ugly disposition, and a person who is very contemptuous of life. He says this young man is wasting his life. He's hiding all that treasure of loveliness by not procreating. And there's still, in spite of all this resentment, that love that he carries for this young man. So he says that is why he says tender churl. The last two lines, it looks like Shakespeare is giving a dire warning to the poor young man. He declares that the young man should procreate and give to the world his offspring. Or the fair youth can be like a glutton, feeding on the earth, feeding on everyone around him. He could choose to go to the grave alone by not leaving behind any of his beauty, by not procreating and passing on his genes to the next generation. There is a solution that Shakespeare offers to the young man plagued by his own narcissistic life. Go to the grave as someone who fed on the love of the world and did not give it back his gift of beauty by procreating. Or take pity on the world and offer it your child who will carry on the flag of your loveliness. If you do not procreate, young man, you will remain a glutton feeding on your beauty. Live through your child or perish through your conceit and self-centeredness.